Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Squawka Talker podcast. And as ever, we'll be taking a detailed and alternative look at a major story within Premier League football. And today, it is all about the man with the golden touch, or to be more precise, the golden boot. Goals, goals, goals. That is where our focus lies on today's podcast. And as we delve deep down into the do's and the do-nots on the road to the Golden Boot, we are going to be looking at everything. The sharpshooters from seasons gone by, and we ask the key question, the all-important question, just how do they do it? We'll be diving into the numbers, the hot streaks, and all the key info that you need to know how to become top dog in the Premier League. And alongside that, we'll be applying it into practice in 2021, looking at some of the heavyweight matchups expected this season. Right then, let's get stuck into it. My name's Feargal Brennan, and back on track, we have Jake Entwistle, back fresh from international duty. Jake, how's things?
Yeah, great to be back on this one. As I was saying before we were recording as well, I've been excited about this. I told people early that we'd be doing this, and they correctly told me that scoring the most goals is the way to win the Golden Boot. But hopefully there's a bit more interesting information coming out of this one.
And a man who unfortunately didn't get an international call-up, but that's no reflection on his talents. He's a man for the club game rather than the international scene. Our very own Mohammed Butt. Mo, how's things?
Well, my manager decided it was best for me to not play for my country. That's what it's the Mason Greenwood approach. I wanted to, but he said no. It's best if you just don't do it. Best for yourself if you hold back. No, I'm good, mate. I'm good. We're very apt given yesterday's striker showdown ish in Warsaw. So this is a nicely timed podcast. So should be fun.
Jake, obviously, as you said on Twitter, people have been super helpful when you've thrown out the question of what you need to do to win the Premier League Golden Boot. And we've looked at numbers, we've been crunching numbers all night, we've been working out little tricks and tweaks and metrics and all the rest of it. But it turns out it does come down to something pretty straightforward. And if you're listening to this podcast, Jake's possibly going to answer the question within the next 30 seconds. So we know you need to score an absolute shed load of goals. But realistically, in the Premier League, how many goals on average do you need to score to get that Golden Boot?
Yeah, as you said there, we're starting with the actual metric that matters when deciding who wins the Golden Boot, and then we'll be looking at a bit more about what goes into those goals, I guess. So yeah, this is Premier League Golden Boot focus. We're looking at Premier League seasons. I was torn whether to include some of the 42 game seasons, but it turns out that only one player played beyond 38 games that won a Golden Boot. So I've left them in just to refer to throughout. The average number of goals scored to win a Golden Boot is 25. So at the end of the day, if you're getting 25 goals in a Premier League season, on average, you're going to pick up the Golden Boot at the end of the season. Obviously, we've had both ends of the spectrum as well. So what I'll be doing is I'll just be telling you the best ever Golden Boots and the worst ones as well. So the most goals scored to win a Golden Boot, as many people may know, is 34, but that was in the 42 game season. Andy Cole and Alan Shearer both doing 34 one season after another. And then in a 38 game season, there was a slew of players that had got 31 until Mohamed Salah rocked up in 2017-18 with his 32 goals, which was quite astonishing, really. I think getting 32 goals in a 38 game season is pretty nuts, but the way he did it, scoring so consistently, was absolutely wild. The other end of the goals, as I said, averaged 25. Fewest number that has been needed to score to win a Golden Boot, is 18, but they're all joint winners. And it was a back-to-back seasons of joint winners in 97-98 and 98-99, in which 6 players scored 18 goals in those 2 seasons and all got a share of the Golden Boot. But the lowest figure outright, only one player has scored fewer than 20 goals and won a Golden Boot. And that was Nicola Anelka for Chelsea. He got 19 in that season. And yeah, you could say it's the most ungolden Golden Boot maybe of the Premier League season, not even getting 20 to rack it up. But it shows that if you're lucky, you don't even have to get that many to get it.
Well, I mean, that season was that was when United won the title, the third straight title, wasn't it? With Vidic and They set that record, didn't they, for not conceding that season? Van der Sar and Vidic, and they were fantastic. And they were just churning out. Cristiano missed like half the season through injury and sulking. And it was just United just sort of ground their way to the title. There wasn't really a massive opposition from anybody except for that great Liverpool team, who you'd think Torres would have challenged him, but Benitez was holding Torres back all the time, subbing him out. So it was like, it was funny because it was the two best teams were built on defence, weren't they? So you got Anelka sneaking in there with his thing. And in 98, 99 as well, that's the interesting one as well, because obviously the two best teams were very much not built on defence. They were attacking teams, Arsenal and Man United. But Arsenal didn't. I mean, Anelka was the main guy, but they didn't have. It wasn't like Thierry Henry main level of main guy. And then with United, they just shared the goals around. They had 4 strikers, so there was a lot of rotation going on there. So you seem to, if you want to nab it with 20 or less, it seems like you need to have some sort of either the best teams are all defensive juggernauts and no one's really, and the goals will be shared around, or you need to have a team that's got so many great attacking options that they can't, they're constantly rotating. Otherwise, it's like you need to bag serious goals otherwise.
Just to clarify as well, I didn't actually say the season for that. It was the 2008-09 season. And to give Nicola Anelka some credit, and this will be a feature, I guess, of the podcast, he didn't score a penalty that season. So it was 19 pure goals for the Golden Boot. So that might make some people respect the tally a bit more.
Looking at games, obviously, Jake, when we go back to the start of the Premier League, it was a 42-game season. It's manifested into a 38-game season. We know now that some strikers, given the demands of Champions League, cup competitions, internationals, managers will manage the amount of games that they play. And even key men who bang in 20-plus goals per season might not necessarily play in excess of 30 or probably not even 35 games across the course of a season. So if 25 is the working average of the amount of goals that you need to get your hands or get your foot inside the Golden Boot, how many games does it take to do it? If 25 is the target for goals, how many times do you have to run out to get that target?
Part of the replies to the tweet that I did again was people that were sort of being helpful and trying to sort of develop some theories as well. Is a lot of people were asking whether injuries played a massive part. And I think, again, the obvious answer is that if you're out for 20 games of the season, you're going to have to be pretty special to get 25 goals. And again, looking at the average number, again, excluding and including the 42-game seasons, it basically falls between 34 to 35 appearances that you've got to make for your team that season. But the fewest games needed to get a Golden Boot outright was Harry Kane in 2016-17 with 30. And if you remember, that is the season in which he scored 7 in the final. I think it might have been the final 2 games of the season, or it was definitely in May. He scored back-to-back hat-tricks, including 4 against Leicester or Hull. I can't remember which way it was around. So you can get 33% of your tally in 2 games if you play the right teams. But dialing it back even more specifically, the fewest minutes needed, which obviously is 30 games, you can make 30 appearances, but if you're coming on as a sub in the 90th minute each time, that doesn't qualify you, I don't think, for Golden Boot standard. To put it in perspective, Harry Kane that season played 2,531, but the fewest, and although it was a joint Golden Boot, was Dimitar Berbatov in 2010-11. He played just 2,200 minutes and scored 20 goals alongside Carlos Tevez that season. And the final clarification I should just say is that another one of the questions was, which position does everyone play? And sadly, there wasn't really anyone that stuck out as not being a traditional forward. You have wide forwards like Salah and Ronaldo getting on the list, but pretty much everyone on here is a 34 to 35 game centre forward, unless you're a super duper sub like Dimitar Berbatov.
Well, no, even Berbatov, that season, 10-11, he was the starting centre forward for United, because remember, Rooney began that season coming off the World Cup, the injury, in horrible form, the transfer request to Man City, all this nonsense. And Berbatov carried United and Javier Hernandez. They were the ones carrying United through the first half of that season, keeping them afloat. And then Fergie sort of hit on like the start of the year. Rooney came back into the team, played number 10 behind Hernandez, and Berbatov just sort of was like a sub for the last few games of the season. It was for the run-in, and as Rooney went wild, the hat-trick against West Ham, but he only scored like 12 goals that season. It wasn't like a big goal season, but they were all like towards the end, they were overtaking against Man City, all this stuff. Like he took over, he took all the headlines, but Berbatov was the one. Like, it's funny how you forget certain contributions if they happen at the wrong time of the season. So Berbatov's all his business was in the start of the season, so everyone forgets about it and it's like, oh yeah, Rooney. Like Rooney defines that season, even though like Berbatov and Tevez scored the most goals. It's like it's funny how that works. So I think you have to score your, if you want to get remembered, you have to score your goals at the right time as well, like big goals or at least late in the day, or well, not even late in the day, because I think even Harry Kane, like I think you need to score them. Like if you score loads in like the middle chunk of the season, that's when people think, oh yeah, he's the top scorer. It burns in your memory more, like from January to like March or April. I don't know. That's just me spitballing. I'm sure you guys actually have the actual data for that.
Jake, you've said before about penalties, and it's such an interesting thing because opposition fans will always use it as a stick to beat certain players with. They'll call out strikers from other teams and say, "Oh, they only score penalties, they only score set pieces, they only score tap-ins, etc." And when you look through the list of the great and good who have won the Premier League Golden Boot, there is a lot of penalty takers. Shearer obviously is a dominant theme. Thierry Henry, Ruud van Nistelrooy, Cristiano Ronaldo, and even as you get into the modern end of that, and Harry Kane. So it is an interesting one because you've mentioned there Anelka, 19 clean, no penalties. He can kind of hold his hands up and say, "Yes, I got the lowest number, but I didn't have to, pad my numbers out with penalties." So I suppose when you look at this, generally speaking, it is going to be a team's penalty taker that wins the Golden Boot. But do they have to take penalties? How important is it to beef up those numbers by being a set piece taker?
Yeah, I was actually pleasantly surprised. Like Berbatov there that I've just mentioned didn't score any penalties in that 20 either. So already the two that we've spoken about and highlighted haven't been on spot kicks at all and managed to win a golden boot. So I guess the answer is that you don't have to take penalties, which is quite refreshing, and it will mean that we don't have to create a non-penalty golden boot, which I'm sure would go down well with the masses. But in terms of, again, just averages, and again, you could probably crunch these numbers even further. This is just purely based on all golden boot winners. The average number of penalties scored by a person that has won the golden boot, and this includes people that have shared it, is 3.1. 3 isn't that many, and especially in an era in which now we've got VAR giving more penalties, is you might take 3 just by virtue of being second penalty taker because your first one is injured or has already been substituted. So the opportunity to get to the magic number of 3, which again is an average over the nearly 30 years, so circumstances do change, but the fact that 3 penalties can be enough, and already we've spoken about players not even scoring any winning the golden boot, is quite good. So to give perspective again of both ends of the spectrum, as I've been doing, the golden boot winners with the most penalties is Alan Shearer in 1994-95, again, which is a 42 game, smashed double figures of pens. He got 10 to get that golden boot. Moving into 38 games, Ruud van Nistelrooy, unsurprisingly, 8 penalties in 2002-03 to get his golden boot. As you said, he's one of those that has a reputation of being a dirty goal scorer, only tap-ins, only pens, but at the end of the day, you have to score them. So I was being a bit tongue-in-cheek there. And interestingly, Thierry Henry actually is then third in 03-04, which is his 20 assist season as well. 7 penalties there. To reel off the fewest pens, which again, as we've already mentioned, the fact that Anelka and Berbatov have done it with no penalties. Andy Cole, 34 goals, no penalties. I think that's one of the greatest feats of golden boot history. And I've come across that one before because I think he only scored 1 pen in general, and he's third top scorer all-time competition. So yeah, Andy Cole is probably one of the least talked about goal scorers, I think, in all of these conversations, but he's third on the list, and he's the one that didn't take any penalties.
Ian Wright is always saying Andy Cole needs to get his flowers more often, man. He's one of the unsung players of the 90s, of that great United team, of that Newcastle team he's played for before. He was utterly sensational, and just never got the credit he deserved. He scored 5 goals in a single game.
Yeah, so just to clarify as well, this 34 was for Newcastle as well. So yeah, there's a reason why Man United got a reputation for just signing the best players in the league, because yeah, if someone bags 34 without taking a pen, you need to get him in your squad. There are others that have done it though as well. So I just wanted to highlight him specifically because it's just so crazy. Thierry Henry, who I mentioned, was on one of the lists for 7 penalties. He's got 4 golden boots, so he's going to be cropping up a lot in this conversation. But in 04-05, so the next season, he got the golden boot and didn't take any penalties, didn't score any penalties at all. Sorry. So maybe someone got in his ear and said, try and do it without anything from the spot, and he did exactly that. Drogba then did it in 06-07. Anelka, as we mentioned, did it in 08-09. And Luis Suarez's 31 goal season in 13-14 did not include any penalties. And even more impressively for him, he scored 3 direct free kicks instead of penalties for those 31 goals. So in terms of incredible seasons, again, I think Luis Suarez, who I was surprised didn't come up on the fewest minutes data when I was looking at it, because obviously he didn't start the season. But yeah, 31 goals in 33 games, no penalties, pretty special.
Yeah, that season was absolutely magical. It's funny. I mean, I know you say he didn't start the season, but he basically played every single game once he came back. He was like constantly on the pitch. Him, Sturridge. I mean, they really, and Sterling as well to a degree, young range Sterling. But it was Sturridge and Suarez just went absolutely wild that season, and it was. I mean, it's in many ways, it's a shame they never won the title, because that could have gone down in history as one of the most like wowzers title ever. Because like there were obviously flaws in that team, which ultimately undid them against Chelsea, Crystal Palace, but they played such like free flowing, sensational football. Like to watch them, it was like watching them in motion. It was just like, wow, okay, this is a real team, man. And it's just, it's almost a shame they didn't get over the line. Although hilarious, because who doesn't love laughing at the slip?
One stat I regretted not asking for as well, because obviously Opta have helped us out with a few of these numbers too, was inside and outside of the box goals. Because I know Gareth Bale's got the record just in general. I think 9 goals outside the box in a single season is the record, but I just remember Luis Suarez literally scoring from every single position on the pitch during that season as well. And obviously with 3 direct free kicks, that's already 3 that are guaranteed to be outside the box. When I was looking through this, I started building like, what's my favorite golden boot, or what's the best golden boot? And I think Luis Suarez's 2013-14, in terms of pure sort of variety and rate of 0.94 goals per game, it's got all the ingredients to be up there in contention alongside Andy Cole, who I've mentioned as well.
We kind of joked and talked about penalties padding out the stats, Jake, and in terms of beefing up numbers and maybe taking a striker from 20 to 25 or 25 onto 30, depending on how many opportunities they get from 12 yards. But hat-tricks, if you're going through a little bit of a barren spell, if you haven't scored in 5 or 6 games and you come up against a bit of cannon fodder, someone that's probably going to be relegated, and you can fill your boots, get 2, get 3 goals, that can in turn bring you up. And when you look at some of the numbers, again, connected with previous winners of the Golden Boot, Sergio Aguero's the top dog, 12 hat-tricks and 1 Premier League Golden Boot. And the highest current Premier League player is naturally Harry Kane, 8 Premier League hat-tricks for Tottenham so far. Now, when you look through the numbers, all of these players generally have knocked in at least a hat-trick per season. But given the fact that there is such a demand and there is probably more of an even goal spread across a 38 or 35 average game season for these strikers, how important is it to get a hat-trick? Obviously, it boosts the numbers and can boost confidence and get you into a hot streak of goals. But is it essential if you're able to spread your goals a bit more evenly and get a better return across the whole season?
I like the point you made there about that intangible aspect of it. Is obviously like if you get a hat-trick, it's usually because you're feeling good about yourself and you carry that into the next game. But in terms of the sort of boring numbers and hard facts about it, pretty much everyone has got at least 1 hat-trick. The average number of hat-tricks you need, again, according to just all the golden boots, is 1.5. So you don't have to be getting plenty of them. But if you get 1 hat-trick, that's probably a good sign that you're going to be on the way towards that magical 25 mark. The most hat-tricks, again, in a golden boot was Alan Shearer. He got 5, I think, in the 94-95 season again. So just the fact that he got 34 goals, and that season in itself has got records tied to it. But I guess the most interesting part is the fewest hat-tricks, and only 2 players have won the Golden Boot outright without scoring a hat-trick, and that is Thierry Henry in 2001-02, and Harry Kane actually did that last season. And I was like, wait, I had to like triple check that, and I'm still not convinced it's correct. But basically, the two North London strikers that seem to be perennially linked with goal scoring records, I think they've got the same number of hat tricks as well in total. They're the only two that have won a Golden Boot outright without scoring a hat trick. And then you've got joint winners, Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank 1999, and then Sadio Mane and Aubameyang in 1819, when the three African players got 22 goals. They didn't get a hat trick. So yeah, it's very rare that if you don't get a hat trick, you're going to be anywhere near the Golden Boot. But yeah, the North London strikers have shown that again, it can be done.
See, that's so impressive to me, though. That like bagging the Golden Boot without a hat trick just means that you're consistently scoring every like 5 hat tricks in one season. Shearer could have had like long dry spells where he didn't score a goal, bangs in hat trick, and that covers you, isn't it? And so the consistency of goal scoring that you need, to win the Golden Boot without a hat trick is incredible. And it just goes to show you how good Thierry Henry, and it's funny, really. Thierry Henry was in that 01-02 Arsenal, the title-winning tie, and it's so funny because that side always gets forgotten because it's not the 98, the double-winning side, the first Arsenal side of the Mega that won the title, and it's not then the Invincibles. It's the middle child. It always gets forgotten, but for me, that was almost the best team of the three for Arsenal. There was this perfect harmony of just Henry was amazing, Pires was like still new, and like wow, amazing. Then they had some old school there. And Sol Campbell was like, oh yeah, to me that was a phenomenal Arsenal side, and it always gets forgotten, which is a shame. I'm pretty sure that's the team that beat Inter 5-1 in San Siro as well. Or was that the next season? I can't remember now. But anyway, point is, Henry is great. So
yeah. Even as an Arsenal fan, it all merges. And just to self-correct myself, the 5 hat tricks for Shearer, were the next season when he scored 31 goals. So just basically when he won those triple golden boots, he was just setting all the records.
Yeah, well, it's like Henry did it as well. Like different flavors of golden boot. So he's had a golden boot with no hat tricks. He's had a golden boot with 7 penalties and a golden boot with no penalties. So Henry and Shearer just collecting all the flavors of golden boot.
Yeah, showing that variety. The final point I wanted to make on hat tricks, though, and I nearly brought it in earlier because we were talking about Berbatov. He scored 55% of his goals in 3 games in 2010-11. He obviously got the 5 goals and then 2 other hat tricks. So, like we were saying, obviously, it's almost underrated how long it might take to score 9 other goals. I know that sounds a bit silly, but yeah, Berbatov used those 3 games to absolutely just run wild, and he didn't even win it outright. So, even if you bag like big hat tricks, you still need to have that consistent scoring throughout the season to get into sort of outright figures. But yeah, I found it funny that he won a Golden Boot nearly off 3 games in 2010-11.
Before we look at assists and the kind of relationship they play with a Golden Boot winner, can you be selfish enough? Can you be unselfish enough to get your hands on it? I want to ask you a quick bit of trivia. I've been digging around whilst Jake was talking. So Mo, I'll go first. I'll let you have a guess. And then Jake, I'll let you have a guess. Hopefully, both of you get it wrong. So then we have a big reveal. The most Premier League hat-tricks without winning the Golden Boot. So 9 Premier League hat-tricks, but they've never won the Golden Boot. And I'm just going to double check that while you're having a think. Mo, I'll go with you first.
It's Aguero, isn't it? It's got to be Aguero, surely.
No, Aguero is top. He's got 12 and he got 1 Golden Boot, just the 1 solitary one.
I know who it is, and it's only because you said 9, and I'm going to look silly now if it's not, but I'm pretty sure that's Robbie Fowler, right?
Bingo, yeah, Robbie Fowler.
I've spent so much time on the Premier League hat tricks Wikipedia page. It's one of the best pages out there. So yeah, as soon as you said 9, I was just thinking that's so many. That's like top 3, isn't it, as well? So
yeah, he's third. Aguero top with 11, and then Aguero with 12, and then Shearer with 11, and then Fowler.
Fowler was so good. It's perplexing almost that I guess injuries played a factor and whatnot, but it's almost perplexing that he didn't win a Golden Boot. And I suppose, admittedly, at the start you look at the numbers, who's in his way, and it's Shearer in pure juggernaut mode. So it's like it's a bit hard to get past that. But it's remarkable for how good he was. And if you've never seen Robbie Fowler, obviously, I'm a bit of an old man, so I've seen him plenty. But if you never saw Robbie Fowler, it was quite honestly sensational. The stuff he could do, the way he could pull finishes out of nowhere, just really, really impressive striker.
I think he falls into that bracket, same as Andy Cole, of just if you haven't seen him, YouTube him. If you're old enough to know better, then you should know better about how good Robbie Fowler and Andy Cole are. Simple.
Yeah.
Just to show that averages aren't everything. Robbie Fowler, 94, 95, 25 league goals, magic number, and he got 28, 95, 96. So he was ticking all the boxes. But yeah, as Mo said, Alan Shearer scoring 5 hat-tricks and 10 penalties in 2 different seasons. You've got no chance.
Let's look across to assists now, because, Jake, when we talk about goal scorers in the purest form, whether they're banging in penalties or they're not banging in penalties, we always talk about a relatively similar-ish style of striker. Predatory inside the box, can score from outside the box, might be able to get goals from set pieces, good in the air, good on the ground, etc. And there's always this kind of assumption that they have to be quite selfish. They can't be bothering themselves with build-up play and assists and getting involved in all of that. Just score the goals, win the games, and get your hands on the golden boot. And when you look back over the last 5 or 6 seasons, with the exception of Salah and Harry Kane last season, that does kind of bear out. And we're looking at some of the numbers from the golden boot winners in the last 6 seasons. And 15-16 Harry Kane, 25 goals, just 1 assist. 16-17, Kane again, 29 goals, 7 assists. Not exactly pulling up any trees. Salah then comes in and just takes the league by storm. Fantastic season, 32 goals and 11 assists. It then drops back down again, the shared season in 18-19 with Mane, Aubameyang and Salah. Again, Salah bringing up the average, but Mane and Aubameyang weren't exactly tearing it up. And then 19-20 with Vardy, 5. Kane did change that number again last season when we saw him in a different role, but so much of what we associate this with is a striker in this idea of a purist form, a goal scorer, someone that gets the wrong side of defences, scores goals. And despite the fact that Kane has become a bit of a hybrid and Mo Salah has maybe redefined what we look at in a striker, generally speaking, the assist numbers are not that high because they're trying to concentrate on scoring goals.
I would actually contest it, and I guess the initial theory would be that assist numbers are pretty low. And again, I think the people that did reply to me on Twitter were asking whether to win a golden boot you needed to be driven, as you've just said, into I'm only going to score. But the first 2 golden boots that we mentioned, and this might be a product of the fact that it was very much 4-4-2, 2 up front, so you always had a partner next to you. But when Shearer and Cole got their 34 goals, they also got 13 assists. And that combines to make a 47 goal season, which is the most ever combined. So immediately, the first 2 golden boots were done by players that were also setting up a teammate. So that's 13 goals they've assisted, which is a high number, while also still managing to set the record for most goals in a single season. So immediately off the bat, just using those 2, I would say that rather than just thinking about assists as because they're not scoring, if a player's getting that many assists in a season, it means they're really, really good. And again, another one of the sort of jokey replies to the tweet was that you just have to be good to win a golden boot. And as silly as that might sound, it actually makes the most sense, because the average number of assists of golden boot winners is 8. And I think 8 is quite high for someone that's also trying to aim to get 25 goals. As you said, Feargal, if you were going to say, what do you reckon the average number of assists for a golden boot winner is? I'm pretty sure people would go max 5 maybe, and they'd just lean towards 2 or 3 or 4 because they think you're taking penalties and you want to score. You've got that single-minded nature that a striker needs. So the fact that it's 8 as an average, and that you've also had plenty of players that have racked up double-figure assists while also winning a golden boot is really impressive. Harry Kane last year with 14 assists, which Henry also did in another season, just to, again, blow his trumpet as much as possible. And you've already mentioned the 2 players with the lowest assists as well, which Harry Kane just getting 1 in 15-16 was a big shock. I don't know if, Mo, that's when... I know, was it Pep that called it a Harry Kane team?
Yeah. But Kane, you have to remember when Kane came out through the thing, he was just shooting all the time. It was like he was a poacher, and everyone remembered the whole joke was, one season wonder. All he does is shoot. And I mean, we've said this before on the Squawka Talker. We've said that he's basically a superhero discovering that he has more than one power. It's like, and we've seen his growth. Like, he started out just in the box, bang, 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 hammering goals in, shots in, and then he's developed into this amazing player to the point where, 13 assists last season, 11 assists. It's the point where he's just 14. It's just spraying 40-yard passes in behind defenses like he's flipping Javi or something. It's like, So he's really expanded his game, and it's been a fantastic thing to watch because he's won Golden Boots. I mean, we took the Henri flavor, right? Same sort of thing. He's won a Golden Boot as a pure poacher, and now he's won a Golden Boot as this sort of all-around, all-encompassing centre forward. To the point where Man City were like, we'll pay 120 million for him, not 150, but we'll pay 120. So it's been sensational to watch his growth, and I think it makes sense with. I love the idea that what you said though, the Cole and Shearer thing, the 30, they're getting 13 assists each season. It makes sense because you think about back in the day when you had two strikers, your strikers were just sort of your source for everything. Like your wingers would cross the ball into the box and whatnot, but ultimately, the striker would get down, lay it off, and you got to remember layoffs and headers down were so much bigger then. Shearer was playing with Chris Sutton, so two very potent strikers there. So that was easy assists for Shearer. Cole was playing with Peter Beardsley, who's just a miraculous player. Again, you ever watch Peter Beardsley? Go find him on YouTube. Or ask your father. He's absolutely incredible, or was. So it's like having a great partner, having a great partner in attack, or someone up there that can help you with bag the assist. I think that helps a lot. Like I think a lot of strikers sometimes they end up don't get many assists because it's like who are you passing to really? Where you're the guy who gets the passes. Whereas Kane, last time Son was on fire, so it's like okay, I'm just gonna keep hitting you the ball. It's weird to say maybe it's like the ones who get us assists are part of the better teams, I guess. I mean, maybe not so much in the night, So it's like the more all-round teams where it's just like Kevin Phillips in 2000. How many assists did he get? Like he was playing with Niall Quinn.
Yeah, I thought he was gonna be the lowest. Again, when I was doing this, I was. Again, mate, you can call me sad if you will, but I was almost trying to guess the stuff before I'd found it, and I thought he would be low. And his assists of 4 when it came up, I thought, yeah, that's definitely the lowest. But yeah, you've got Anelka with 2 during that 19 goal season that we mentioned, and Harry Kane and Mane with 1 when they did it. But obviously, again, Mane's was a joint Golden Boot, so
yeah,
depends if you want to give it the full credit. But yeah, Harry Kane won it. Harry Kane's Golden Boot in 2015-16 is probably the most classic of what you would expect a Golden Boot to look like, in the sense that it was just goals, goals, goals. But I think when you strip it back, you realize that the better players you have around you, especially just in your attacking unit, I think that lends itself to delivering a Golden Boot to you. And the more assists you get, I think the more chance, not the more assists you get, the more chance you've got a Golden Boot. But I think it's just a sign that really great players don't have that single-minded, I might want to score all the goals, but I'm going to set a player up if I need to. And by virtue of instilling that sort of approach to each game, you're both going to end up with a lot of goals, like Cole and Shearer proved. And again, Suarez, to mention the Suarez season, he got 13 assists that season. So to do that in 33 games again, just to keep that question in your mind of what is the best Golden Boot. Yeah, Suarez's one keeps cropping up. And yeah, I guess the answer is that you don't need to be focused solely on goals. The more assists, the better.
Before Jake gives us the magic formula, opens Pandora's box and gives you a kind of takeaway cutout guide that you can stick on the fridge if you want to be Premier League Golden Boot winner. I've also looked at some of the streaks in terms of the best parts of the season to score in, and it's always kind of a bit of a cliche, the wet and windy Tuesday nights at Stoke in the middle of winter that you need to score those goals. And generally speaking, in terms of streaks and parts of the season to score in, the numbers back it up. And we go back over the last 5 or 6 seasons, again, Kane is the dominant theme. It does ring true. The kind of back end of the season, in around 15 to 20 games from October through to the end of February. Generally speaking, 0.75 goals per game is what you need as an average. Nobody has scored less than 12 goals in that block of the season and gone on to win the Golden Boot, certainly not outright. Our friend Mr. Salah has again kind of ripped things up and raised the bar and challenged Kane to kind of go and join him. And unsurprisingly, that final countdown, the last 10 games of the season, is absolutely massive. And we look back over their numbers, last 6 seasons, 15-16, Kane got 9 in 10 in his final 10 games of the season. 16-17, he then got even better. He got 10 in 10. And then Salah, as he loves to continue this kind of personal row with Harry Kane, in 17-18, he got 11 in his final 10 games of the season. So it is a bit of a Salah-Kane shootout in the last couple of seasons. Jake, everyone wants to know, they're out in the garden, kicking the ball around. dreaming of being Premier League goal scorer, whether they're 5 or they're 45. We've looked at the numbers, we've built a bit of a formula. What do you need to do? What are the key things to win the Premier League Golden Boot?
Well, unfortunately, I just want to come in and say there's actually one part of the formula that we have missed out that I think is interesting. So I'm going to delay it even further, if you will. Just because I think, again, it's one that we mentioned off air, and it's one that has some really interesting stats in it. Do these strikers need to be able to score all sorts of goals in order to win the Golden Boot? Obviously, right foot and left foot goals don't really help unless you know a player is right-footed or left-footed. Unsurprisingly, the average of right foot goals for a Golden Boot winner is higher because there's more right-footed winners. But the average number of headed goals, which I guess is the main point of this one, is only 2.6. So you don't have to be a superstar finisher in terms of being able to do it with everything. But to pull away some, again, interesting Golden Boot stats based on this specific area of how you score your goals. Teddy Sheringham, the first Golden Boot winner in 92-93, holds the record for most headers within a Golden Boot winning campaign in 7. I actually know that the record for most headers in a Premier League season is 8 from Dwight Yorke, but that wasn't when he won the Golden Boot. Only 3 players have won the Golden Boot, scoring 5 goals with their right foot, 5 goals with their left foot, and 5 goals with their header. With their head, not with their header. That doesn't make any sense. Didier Drogba did it with a perfectly symmetrical 10 right foot, so strong foot, 5 head, and 5 left. So again, the question of best Golden Boots, if you've got OCD like me, 10-5-5 with no penalties is a really nice Golden Boot to look at, regardless of how many goals he actually scored. Cristiano Ronaldo in 2006-07 scored 20-5-5. 20 right foot, 5 left, and 5 head. And Sadio Mane, as a joint winner, did 11 right foot, 5 left foot, and 6 headers. Sadio Mane's got a knack of actually scoring quite a few headers, which always comes out surprising. So I guess I just wanted to include that because it was one of the questions that I had. And people have won the Golden Boot without scoring a header as well. And guess who it is?
Here we go. Thierry Henry, right?
Yeah, 3 of Thierry Henry's Golden Boots were without a single header. And Michael Owen, for the purists of you only need 1 foot to score, Michael Owen's Golden Boots were both 18 goals, and both of them had 16 right-footed goals. One of the joint winners only had 2 left-footed strikes and no headers, and the other one was just 1 left foot and 1 head. So I guess the answer and the reason I wanted to include it is because Drogba and Ronaldo's seasons strike me as being sort of obscene in the ability to score with every body part, and I think it's a really underrated skill. Other players have done 5-5-5s but not won the Golden Boot, and Romelu Lukaku is one of those players, as is Harry Kane, I'm pretty sure. But the other one that Mo highlighted as well is Van Persie, when he scored 30 for Arsenal in 2011-12. He actually did a 17 left foot, 12 right foot. And in terms of people that have won a Golden Boot with on 10 on each foot, he's the only player that's done that. So fair play to Van Persie for training both feet.
Yeah, he was on fire that season. I mean, he did it the next season that United won the Golden Boot, but I think there was much less right-footed goals that season. But the Henry thing is amazing because obviously Henry and Shearer are the 2 greatest strikers the Premier League's ever had. I think Henry's better, but he wasn't good in the air, which is the funny thing. And you would think, with the reputation the Premier League has, that would have really hurt him, but it didn't. And I mean, this table shows that the very best or the very most potent strikers, let's say, aren't necessarily like the ones that are beasts in the air. Like they can be. Obviously, Lukaku Lukaku and Harry Kane, and like you said, they've had the 5-5-5 season, and Cristiano and Drogba. I mean, and now we're going to see Cristiano, Lukaku, and Kane in the same season. So that's going to be interesting to see. Will they all do 5-5-5 this season? I mean, you wouldn't put it past them, right? They've all got the talent. You think of the Premier League and you think of headers, really. But looking at that, what you said, it's not that important if you want to win the Golden Boot. It's important, obviously, it's useful. But like again, the fact that Sheringham still has the record, and he was the first guy that did it, and like the only one that's come close to him is Mane. I mean, and Mane hasn't even, that's just says it all. Headers aren't the most important thing. It's, getting the ball on the floor.
And Mane's headers are probably distinctly different to Sheringham's headers in the sense that it's the football has changed a bit. So Mane's were probably low down diving headers or just tap-ins, whereas Sheringham was probably having to beat a few centre backs to get his head on those ones. Just an assumption based on style of football. But yeah, I'm sorry to delay your build up there, Feargal, but I just really wanted to talk about Drogba's 10-5-5 and 0 pens. I just think that's a beautiful golden boot.
Right. In that case, before we move it on, and we're going to look at this season and how all this maths and numbers apply, give us your 5-6 key points that you need to do to win the Premier League Golden Boot.
One thing that we, again, didn't highlight, but is, again, sort of evident, is you need to be in a decent team. You don't have to win the league. Only 9 seasons, and this includes the 42 games, only 9 seasons the Golden Boot winner has also won the title. So immediately, you don't have to worry if your team's good enough to win the title. You can win the Golden Boot without it. But you probably do have to finish in the top 4 because the average position in the table is 3.44. So if you're a top 4 side or going for Europe, that's where you want to be if you want to win a Golden Boot. Dion Dublin managed to win it, finishing 11th, but it was a joint, and no one's been outside the top 10. So yeah, top 4 is where you want to be. As we said, you need to play 35 games or about 3,000 minutes. Not everyone can do a Berbatov and score 11 goals in 3 games. So stay fit and try and be available for as much as possible. You also want to set other people up. You might be thinking that a Golden Boot, you need to score your goals, but if you can get 8 assists, it means that you're in a good team that has good patterns of play and that is scoring and creating a lot of chances. So don't be afraid to set people up because they're only going to return the favour. You do need to probably put yourself on penalties. The average of 3 penalties, it could make the difference, as we said, with Robbie Fowler. He's scoring 28 and wasn't managing to get a Golden Boot. If he'd scored 3 penalties that season, he would have tied the Golden Boot with Alan Shearer. I'm not sure if he did take any penalties that season, but what I'm saying is those 3 goals can make a difference. So if you can get on pens, probably try and get yourself on pens. You need to get at least 1 hat-trick, probably. I think that is the if you're not going to get your 3 goals from your penalties, get 2 hat-tricks instead. That will boost you forward. And the final thing is, don't worry if you're not very good in the air. But if you can get a couple of headers, it's probably the sign that you're going to be on the way to picking up a Golden Boot. And it's not a golden helmet after all, is it? So just focus like Thierry Henry on your left and right foot, or Van Persie, as we said.
Yeah, I fully agree. And let's be honest, nobody ever wants to win the Golden Helmet Award.